Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and this is Actors with Issues. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. It's 2024, and with the new year, we bring you a new season of Actors with Issues. We are joined by former casting director and current audition and acting coach, Sam Stiglitz. Many of you may know her from Instagram or from TikTok as Audition Pro LA, where she breaks down industry misconceptions and myths and just gives her perspective on the world of casting. And that's exactly what we talk about in today's very insightful episode. We talk about casting, auditions, reels, self-tapes, breaking down industry misconceptions and myths. So please enjoy this episode. And if you enjoy the episode, please subscribe to the show wherever you may be listening and check out our YouTube channel for exclusive bite-sized interviews. Just last month, we had Phil Dunster from the Apple TV Plus series Ted Lasso, so please be sure to check that out. And please enjoy this conversation with Sam Stiglitz. Thank you so much for being here on Actors with Issues. Thanks for being here. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So before we dive into sort of breaking down myths and all of that stuff in regards to casting and the entertainment industry, how did you first get started in casting? How did you get here to where you are today?
Yeah, I grew up a singer, so I did musical theater. Singing was always my thing. And so I wanted to go to school. I went and got my BFA in musical theater, kind of thinking I would be a Broadway actor. Um, didn't like New York that much. It wasn't really my city. I like it for a couple of days. I don't like it for a long time.
Yeah.
So from there, I was like, maybe I'll move to LA, be a film and television actor. That seems easy. I studied in the UK, studied Shakespeare for a while, fell in love with that. When I graduated from school, I moved to LA and then didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
In conservatory programs, they don't really train you about the industry. They train, I don't know if you went, they train you a lot about the art of acting. You get a lot of process. But I had one class on the business of acting. And in that class, we learned to slate with like profiles, and that was pretty much it. So I got to LA, I got a job waiting tables, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know where to go or what to do. It took me years to figure anything out. So I spent years waiting tables and kind of doing nothing. I got myself an agent and a manager, but I didn't know anything about the industry. And so after a couple of years, I was really depressed. I'd sit on my couch all day and I sort of had to have a really hard conversation with myself, which was, do I want to keep doing this? Do I love this enough to keep doing this? For me, the answer was no. Like, I don't love this enough to suffer this way. For a lot of people, they will suffer for it. For me, it was no. So then it was a question of what next? I knew I wanted to stay in the industry somehow. So I wanted to figure out what jobs existed in the industry. And that was another question I didn't really know. I was at an audition, and I was sitting next to this girl who was talking about how a casting director was looking for an intern. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. I'll do that. I wasn't smart enough to like write down the name of the casting director, but I was like, casting director, intern. So I went home that day and I picked up the phone. I called every casting director in LA and I was like, hey, can I work for you for free? And one office, Junie Lowry Johnson, was like, sure, come on in. And I sat down with Lisa Soltow, who was their associate at the time. And I said to her, I want to do this. I want to be the person who says yes. And she laughed in my face. She was like, you are so fucking optimistic. I don't think I'm gonna like you. And so we ended up being really good friends. We partnered at one point. But I got really lucky. That office was so busy. I don't know if you know The Office, but at the time they were doing True Blood and Big Love and Dirty Sexy Money and what's that show? The Western show. It'll come to me. But I got to learn everything from the ground up. So I would intern there during the day, wait tables at night, and learn everything about casting. I'd plant myself in their offices and ask all these questions. And then from there, I was, an assistant, an associate, finally a casting director. And then that sort of ultimately led me here in a long, kind of confusing way.
Your journey and your story is so relevant to, I feel like, to lots of actors. Like I didn't go to school for journalism, yet here I am running a podcast and a little website. And for so many folks, that there is no clear trajectory. There is no ladder to climb. You have a checklist of headshot, resume, reel if you've got it, but there's no one waiting to hand you a job. It's not like a field like nursing where it's like there's a constant need for nurses. Well, for actors, there's not always there's way more SAG-AFTRA members than there are roles available. And that's just the union actors, not even the non-union. But then, what motivated you to move from casting to more of a coaching and to start Audition Pro LA?
Yeah, the name of my company is so dumb. I just picked it randomly because I needed a website, but it sounds like some sort of like gimmick or something. My favorite part about casting was being in the room with actors. Casting is so much, right? You're talking to studio executives and agents and managers and closing deals and paperwork. It's a lot of clerical work, but I loved being in the room with actors. And I didn't get to do enough with them because sessions are jammed with actors, right? You're trying to get as many people in as you possibly can. You don't have time to do the redirects you want to do as much as you can. I loved that part of it. So I was a casting director. I was working at this big office called Zane Pillsbury, casting a bunch of shows. I left, started my own company, and found what I had found with being an actor, which is I don't like promoting myself, which sounds really dumb because you see me on TikTok and Instagram doing stuff, but that's an accident and I don't like the promotion part of it. So I didn't like having to call executives and be like, hey, I'm here. Do you want to give me a show? That kind of thing I hated. So I was talking to my husband. I was like, maybe I'll coach. Maybe in like 3 months I'll start coaching. He's like, why wait 3 months? So I put myself out to Ethan's managers. I was like, hey, I'm going to do some coaching. If you trust me and you want to send me clients, great. And it sort of grew and I got really lucky and I became one of the go-to coaches. I'm on the short list of all the large companies and I'm a referral only coach. So, people have to send me their clients and they do, which is really great. And it's just grown organically and I love it. I love every second of my job.
I'm curious, do you think that you would like casting today given how much self-tapes has taken over, or do you really prefer?
No, I would not want to be my casting director friends. I have so much respect for them because the job has changed so much.
Mm,
The human interaction is gone, and you see the amount of hatred that's geared towards casting now. It's unbelievable.
yeah.
Blamed for everything, but a lot of what they do is watch self tape after self tape after self tape, and the number of tapes, the number of people auditioning for one role, is 10 times what it was when we were in the room. So the job is so different. Casting is invisible now. Not that they want credit or need it, but it's an invisible job.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's very telling to me when an actor, mind you, lots of the sort of TikToks and whatnot that you break down on on your account, it's like, oh, tell me you don't know this business without telling me. Like when people have like, oh, casting is XYZ, I'm like, guys, they are like the first people, like besides reps, like, reps submit and then the casting will give the audition if they think they're the right fit. And then there's like a dozen people after that who have to approve the choices. Like Lord knows how many times castings like we love them, we'll send them up, and then the director says no, a producer, the head of the net, whoever. Like there's so many people, and it's
Yeah.
not known. It's so frustrating because it's like if I feel like I learned it just by like watching videos on YouTube and whatnot, but for some reason actors still.
I would call my producers and be like, I thought the person is here. Like, this is them. And they'd be like, I don't think so. Fine. I fell on my sword. That's all I can do. Right. And then you see those videos where the person is like, I have this company. I guarantee I'll get you a role. Take my seminar. And it's like, how do they guarantee that? No one can guarantee that. When my producer would call me and say, hey, my cousin wants to be on the show, can you get them a role? And I'd be like, sure, send it up the ladder. And they'd be like, the studio executive would be like, no, absolutely not. So if the executive producer can't do that, how can this person living in Montana guarantee that to you? It's just ridiculous. And
Yeah.
that's why knowing the industry is the most important thing you can do to avoid being scammed.
Yeah, I think that it is insane how much misinformation is out there, and that's kind of a goal of mine with this podcast to like sort of break that stuff down, especially from the actor's perspective, but now that we're talking with folks from other facets of the industry from their perspective as well. So what do you think is the biggest misconception actors have about auditions?
About auditions, that there's something that's expected of them, that there's this idea of a role, and we're just waiting for you to jump in our heads and get it right. And that's not true. I think casting producers, directors are waiting for you to put your spin on it and show us what the role is. There's no like secret idea
Yeah.
of what it is. We're waiting for you to guess because that's a losing game.
I feel like in terms of auditions, it's like I remember I took a workshop with the casting director for the flight attendant, And when
Hmm.
they were casting, they had no idea what the tone of the show was because it's this weird dramedy. And they're like, so is this like a full on comedy? Is this a drama? Because it gets serious. And they're like, we don't know. They haven't made it yet. We don't know.
And that's why tone is such a hard conversation when you're talking about auditioning because you get dummy sides for a pilot on a streaming network or whatever, and you don't know. You have no idea what you're auditioning for. So all you can do is put your stamp on it and call it a day. You can't try to guess too much or hope that you'll have the clues. You just have to do your thing.
Does anything else come to mind in terms of like what actors have this idea of what an audition is or what casting, the whole process is that is just completely filled with misinformation out there?
I mean, I think they don't understand that casting really wants you to get the job. Like, if you were the answer to the problem they're having, that would be ideal, right? So they're on your team. In terms of what actors don't know about casting, that could fill a book. I think actors need to know this stuff. Actors need to know the industry. They need to know the way casting directors operate, the way agents and managers operate. They need to know everything. But that's my other biggest one is that casting wants you to be the answer. They really do.
Do you think that a common thread that is hurting actors in the casting process could be like generic looking headshots, poorly lit self tapes? Like, what do you think is sort of something in their control that they're not realizing is actually really important?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't say that poorly lit headshot or self tapes are a big problem. I wouldn't say that headshots are a big problem. I think actors try to guess too hard and
Mm.
they try to make something and try to hack the system. So they'll have like headshots and lab coats, and they'll think that, the plate is the answer or their backdrop is the answer. And it's just not. So I don't think there's one problem that's happening. I think it's actors overthinking things that's happening.
And I feel like in a way, I don't like using the word charlatan, but there's lots of charlatans out there when it comes to, like you said, selling their seminars and and things like that, and come take my 8 week course for $1,000, and I'll get you an agent or something. Um,
Manipulate the system. If you just put your self tapes like this and you just have these headshots and you just do this, then you'll get in for casting. That's not a thing, right? It's just really not.
yeah, that's kind of one of my biggest pet peeves is when people take their one uh, exceptional experience and treat it like now this could work for everybody. It
Like,
Yeah, it's especially when it comes to like how I got my first age. Like I got my first reps, they found me on IMDb Pro. They saw I didn't have a manager listed, and they reached out, and everyone's like, oh, how did you get, I'm like, they found me, they did their job, they scouted me. Like it's there's so many different ways for all that to happen that like you said, there's a broad checklist of what you need. There's no set formula.
oh, and I wish there were. If I knew it, I would share it with you, but there's not. It's the work, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
do want to have headshots that stand out because they're looking through thousands, but they don't stand out by being like doctor. That's just not the way it works.
So we're gonna go to a segment of the show. For each episode, it changes. So this one's called Dear Sam. So it's sort of user submitted questions and listener submitted questions. Lots of actors listen to the show. So in terms of like we sort of touched on this already. Sort of post conservatory actors feel a little bit stuck. They don't really know like what to do next, which you explained was sort of your situation. So what can actors do to get the ball rolling fresh out of school in order to get their career moving? What do you think is something that's missed there?
It totally depends on the person. Again, like I don't think there's like a formulaic thing, but I think getting into an acting class you love,
Mm.
once you feel like you're ready, researching the area you're in, learning about the agents, what agent is right for you, who takes on developmental talent, do you want a manager too? What is the market you're living in, right? I think that's so important to know because if you're in a smaller market, what does that feel like? If you're in Los Angeles, what does that feel like? Once you have an agent, who are the casting directors? Like just having the knowledge of your area is so important. And making sure you have headshots, all of that's really important too. People panic about having reels. Don't worry about that. Get some self tapes, that kind of stuff. Making sure your package is good. That's great.
Yeah, I remember with I was very lucky. I had a general meeting with the network, and um, my reel was like one clip from a show I did, and then a bunch of like smaller clips from random short films and things like that I'd done. And I remember them telling me, and this like completely changed my perspective because people treat their reel like, look at everything I've done,
Mhm.
versus here's my best work. And
Exactly.
when like for me, I've only booked co-stars. Those are like 2 to 5 lines. Like that's not going to be your best work. It might be the short film where you had a great scene. It's like those look the best, but
And your best work. You want to have both of those reflected on your profile.
right, exactly. And
Mhm.
uh, we can actually talk about reels for a bit since we sort of touched on headshots and whatnot. But when it comes to reels, there's always the sort of conception out there that casting only has like 10 to 15 seconds to watch the beginning of a reel. So put your best thing up top. Is there anything else, any other like sort of tips you would give an actor when it comes to formatting the reel or what should be on there?
Look, I think everyone is split on this. This is not fact. This is opinion. I talk to a lot of people about this. I do think you want to think like a casting director. So if they make it to your page, you want to make sure it's laid out in a way where they understand what they're going to see. So if it says just reel, they're going to watch the first 10 seconds. If you want them to watch what's germane to what they're casting, break it down. So if they're casting a procedural and you have a procedural clip, they're going to jump to that. I think universal no's are like slow motion montages set to AC/DC at the beginning of your reel. That's a no, right? Just make it easy for casting. The other thing actors love to tell each other is that casting only watches the first 10 seconds of their audition, which is not true. It's not true. So I think you can sort of let that go. Yes, you want to have a good audition, but what if the first 10 seconds you're not talking? What are you going to do? Tap dance? Like,
Right.
you got to get that stuff off your chest and do the best audition you can do.
Is there anything you miss about sort of casting or the industry that has changed since pretty much the beginning of the pandemic over the last couple of years?
I miss about casting. I miss a lot about casting. I mean, I missed all the actors I used to know and love. I miss my producers, seeing them and the different scripts all the time. But I get to work with so many actors and see so many different things. Because when I was casting my shows. So I got to see one or two or three shows. Now I see all of them, which is so different. And now I get to see how different actors work. And I'm privy to the process. Before I was privy to the product. And so that's a different thing.
And when it comes to actors who have smaller reps or no rep at all, what advice do you have for them to try and get seen? Because I feel like it's an annoying adage. It's all about who you know. But like if your agents or managers don't have a strong relationship with a casting office,
Mm-hmm.
then the likelihood of them getting seen maybe isn't as great as someone that they've worked with a lot and have sent lots of actors and booked off of them. So, what advice do you have for an actor who either doesn't have a rep and is trying to get that first rep, or has to do a bit more of the groundwork themselves?
Two different situations, right? If you
Mm.
don't have reps, you're not being submitted to those casting office because they're submitting breakdowns, right? But if you do have reps and you feel like they don't have strong relationships, kind of on the reps, right? Like they need to build those relationships with casting. They're still submitting, but some you have to have a talk with your reps and see how they're submitting. Are they just pushing send on Breakdown Express, or are they calling? Are they pitching? Every breakdown that goes out, it says please no phone calls, and then the second it goes out, there's calls, right? You need to talk to your reps about, do they send a submission email, like a pitch, along with their send on Breakdown Express? What's in the pitch? Do they need more material from you? Do they have everything they need? You can help them in that way, but you're not going to pick up the phone and call the casting office. So you really do need to talk to your reps about how that's going. If you're not represented, get represented, but make sure you're ready. You want to do the best work you've ever done when you're submitting to reps.
And this is a section we call the good, the bad, and the ugly. We sort of talk a bit more about sort of our likes, our dislikes about the industry, and about all the insanity that that comes with being part of entertainment. So we'll start with the good. So what would you say is your favorite part about working in the entertainment industry?
I really love actors. I think actors are so cool and so brave and so talented, and I get to be a part of it. And sometimes my clients just blow me away. And I collaborate. I think coaching is all about collaboration. I don't feed my clients anything. I don't tell them what to do. It's all about coming up and brainstorming. And I fucking love that. I think it's so cool. And sometimes I'll have clients come in, I get to see how someone really interesting, who I've loved my whole life, how their brain works. And I think that's so interesting.
And on the other side of that, is there anything in the industry that is just unnecessary we need to do away with? Like,
Yes. There's so much we need to do away
spill.
with. He comes home at the end of the day and we'll be like, what the fuck? Like, what is wrong with this industry? For me personally, and I say this over and over again, taking advantage of actors, scams. Like if I could, that's the whole reason I stay on social media. I had no intention of being on social media. I had no intention of staying on social media. I am a behind the camera person for my clients. But if I can help actors stay away from that shit, I will stay on it forever. Like people taking advantage of actors is the worst thing that in the industry that someone can do.
And I'm curious with sort of the trajectory. I mean, with the strike, what was your takeaway with the strikes and everything with the writers, SAG-AFTRA? Um, as a member of SAG, I fully supported the strike, obviously, and I'm a little bummed with that this one went through, but it was either that or we revert back to the one we had before, which is not great. But what was your takeaway from this big chunk of time that actors were not auditioning, that they were not working, that no new content was coming out? What was your takeaway from that whole time?
Specifically or generally, like what kind of takeaway?
Like, I guess generally, like, was there anything that changed in the industry during that time that you think was for the better? Changes like I feel like I didn't read through the whole contract. It was very long, but in terms of like turnaround times for casting, I think now they have like specific requirements.
Oh, you mean what came out of the strike that was good or bad? Is that what you're saying? Or
Yes.
I see. I was like, generally, I don't know, everyone was sad. Like, it was a hard time. Yeah, I think the turnaround time is important. Obviously, letting an actor know if someone has an offer is important, but casting always did that. They
Mm.
always know if there was an offer. I think not memorizing, great. I don't think you should require an actor to memorize. Like, I think the things that came out on the casting side, like, the regulations on what the self tape had to be, the size of it, the blah, 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 great. Again, I think these were, and I'm glad they're in writing now. These were actor rumors for sure, right? Casting wanted you to have a professional self tape and blah, 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 blah. Like, that was an actor rumor. However, casting always tries their hardest to get you self tapes as early as possible, but episodic television is so hard. It's so hard to cast, and the turnaround is so fast. So I'm glad it's in writing. It is difficult now, I'm sure, for casting to try to get these auditions out early. There's always going to be last minute auditions. I am on the actor side, though, and not casting side with the number of pages on a self tape. I would get pages for actors for auditions, and it was like 15 pages of auditions, and I was like, we could have cut out 2 of these scenes. Like, come on, casting, like we can do better. I'm not always on casting side, but in that case I was like, that's amazing if they did that because it's necessary.
Right. So this is our last segment of the show. It's time for life's big questions. This is a very important one. So if you could have any superpower, which would you choose?
Oh, I think I would like to be able to turn into anyone at any time.
Oh, cool. Yeah, like a what's her name? Mystique. Yeah. Singing or dancing?
Well, I can sing, so dance. I would love to be able to dance.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes, every time. Very passionate about it.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
I don't think so, no.
It's its own thing.
I don't think
Coffee or tea?
coffee, yes.
What movie never fails to make you laugh?
Birdcage, always,
Oh,
100% of the time. Such a good movie. And so perfectly cast.
yeah. Is it GIF or GIF?
I would say, I think I know it's GIF, but I say GIF. It's one of those things
Same.
I can't.
I'm like, I know it's graphic, but
Yes.
GIF just feels weird. In one word, what is your favorite part about what you do?
I like to be in the room when a light bulb goes off. I think it is the coolest thing. You see it in someone's eyes when everything settles and it's like, oh, that's what it is.
Hmm.
It's the coolest moment ever.
I'm going off script here. Have you experienced something like that? Like that you're like, oh, this is our guy or this is our girl, and they end up booking it like that's like the perfect casting choice.
Right? Like I've done it as the casting director and I've done it as a coach, right? I've seen what happens with auditions is you see the same thing over and over and over and over again. And then because anyone with a brain reads a script, they get it, they do it. And then someone comes in and they're like, oh, you lean in, you're like, that's our guy, right? That's our girl, that's someone, right? So that moment is incredible. And then when the stars align, that person actually gets the job. And then as a coach, when you can help them and get there and you're like, oh my God, and then they get the job, it's amazing too, right? It's just so exciting. And I'm so proud of people on both sides when that happens.
So back to our questions. What is your favorite theatrical performance you've seen live?
Oh, Victor Garber in Damn Yankees when I was like 11 years old. It's the reason I'm in this industry. And I think 12,000 people have told him the story except for me. Anytime someone meets Victor Garber, I'm like, oh my God, you know
what TV show or film do you feel is criminally underrated?
Queer as Folk. The American version.
Okay.
The original American version. There have been 3 versions. I'm an expert. There have been 3 versions. The original American version is amazing.
Would you rather, I'm going to change this usually like for an actor if they were in it, but would you rather cast a popular sitcom or a gritty limited series?
I guess a gritty limited. No, actually right now, a sitcom because it's less depressing. Back then, I would have said gritty limited series, but the world's too depressing. So now I'd say sitcom. Yeah, I don't want to sit through.
Yeah, you don't want to sit through tape after tape of a same sad scene.
Yeah.
If you could sit down for dinner with any actor, dead or alive, who would it be?
Come back to this one. I have to think about it.
Okay. There's only one question left, but
I'll never come up with. There's just too many actors.
okay. In 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Educate yourself on the industry. Be smart. Be fearless. Be okay with making mistakes. Be kind to yourself. Everything passes, and don't give a fuck what people think about you. That is like so incredibly important. It really is.
Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, and for giving your insight. It's so appreciated. For anyone who wants to, you said you're referral only, correct? So there isn't like a way for folks to reach out.
Coaching, I do career consultations without a referral, but for coaching, yes. Referral only, yeah.
Gotcha. And on Instagram, on TikTok, where can folks find you?
Audition Pro LA.
Awesome. Well, Sam,
this question you asked me about my favorite actor. I too many flood my brain. I will email you, and you can tell it. Good people. I have to come back to it.
Yeah, no problem. Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you again so much, and again, thank you. And yeah, I'll see you next time I'm scrolling on Instagram.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to Actors with Issues on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and visit our YouTube channel for full video interviews. Actors with Issues is executive produced and hosted by Juan Ayala. See you next time.